A friend of mine just sent me a video now, somewhere in Nigeria, where he discovered that the Chinese company are exploiting hectares, thousands of hectares of land, and he is worried because the goods and the things they are producing are not destined for the Nigerian economy. They send it back to China to feed their ever-growing population, and these things are not just in Nigeria; they are replicated all over Africa. You see them in Kenya, you see them in Uganda, you see them in different parts of Africa. So he's worried. And then there are those other group of the people, the northern people from the other side of the ocean, the Westerners are raising an alarm too. And the funny enough, the word they employ is recolonization. They say that China is trying to recolonize Africa. Okay, as Africans, we need to ask ourselves this question. What do we stand to gain? What do we stand to lose in this partnership? What do we stand to? First of all, we need to understand that China comes to Africa to exploit our land because we gave them our consent. And when we say no, they are not going to send mercenaries or set up proxy wars or come and meddle with our political affair or destabilize our community. Contrary to the Western partners that we have. So we have seen that we have been relating with our Western partners for over 600 years now, and it has we don't. When you look back into history, it's not a charming one. From slavery to colonialism, from colonialism to neo-colonialism, where we're suffering from now. So, in order to understand this, we need to look at China through the historical and cultural perspective because these are some of the key elements that determine the way they view the world. Because China, in history, has always been a victim of imperial power. So, this will help us to understand their struggle and what precisely they are looking for in Africa. And to do this, we have to go back to their recent history. Around 1839, there was an event that happened. They call it the Opium War. When the British Empire came in to occupy China, they forced them to commerce with them to exchange opium for their tea, and that's not the noble goods. You were trying to force people to commerce with you, and then the Chinese people, that was during the Qing Dynasty. They say, folks, we really don't want some of this product because it's not helping our community, and we cannot continue to trade with you. So the British people saw that they are gain, and they stand to lose a lot because they're going to lose a huge amount of money if they don't sell this product. So what did they do? They sent out their armies, artillery to bombard China to make China to submit to their power. So China now lost her power. So not just the British Empire, France, Germany, and other countries, American, they came in to feast on China to divide all her resources. So this struggle continued till 1937 when the Japanese people actually came in with their bombs and their ridiculous ambition to conquer the world and to rule the world. So they said that they want to start with China first. After China, because of our demographic advantage, that they will start with China and then go on to conquer the whole world. They occupied China, bombarded millions of people, they killed them. So they went on like that, and this struggle continues till the advent of the Second World War in 1939. And then the Second World War came in, continued in 1945 when the whole thing ended. But that wasn't finished yet for China. They went on civil unrest in their country, the civil war that they had. So internally, China was destabilized after the foreign occupation, all the powers and all the struggle and everything. And we all know it that China, they have always been the victim of all these powers. So they went on, and the main reason for the civil unrest internally in China was because America was meddling with their political affair. They wanted to install Chiang Kai-shek as their national leader. So they came in and they said they wanted to instill democratic values in China. This arrogance about the Westerners, they feel they have the best ideology. They know everything. So all the world should behave like them. They all this human right preaching. But funny enough, they don't have a charming history. When you look at it back in the history, I'm not sure their lifestyle is well emulating. What we need to understand is to create our own life. So China went on this civil unrest. 1945, it started with Mao Zedong, who led the cultural and industrial revolution throughout China. He mobilized these people and told them, folks, we have to do something, if not, we're going to die. So they went on with fighting till what created the modern-day Taiwan, when the opposition power, the Nationalist Party, ran to Taiwan to settle down there, to start up another government there. So the thing went on till 1970. So all the struggle went on like that, and you will see through the recent history that China, in around 1967, China had a huge inflation that affected her economy. First of all, you will see that 20,000 yuan were exchanged for $1, just $1. This is 1967, and then when you go to 1968, you see that 20 million was exchanged for $1. So this is to explain to you how much China has suffered in the history, what they went through the imperial occupation and their civil unrest internally. But that same year, 1968, China also sent a rocket to the sky. So it shows that they were determined and that the cultural and the industrial revolution that was led by Mao Zedong was successful. So during that period, they call it the Great Leap into the future. So it was a battle where millions of lives were lost, more than 30 millions of people died. So if you really want to understand how China looks like in the 1960s, you need to look back into Africa now to see where millions of people were starving. And China currently has a population of 1.4 billion people. And likewise, Africa, we have 1.2 billion people. So we need to feed them. So during this period now, China became industrialized. They had a cultural revolution that helped shape the mindset of the people to value this development because they were determined in this struggle. They wanted to succeed anyhow. So you look at it this way, the meddling of the imperial power, Americans, the British Empire, everything, but these people struggle to liberate themselves. So all their struggle, all their history has been that of struggle, of liberation, struggle for their independence, for their sovereignty. So when they come to Africa, they don't meddle with our political affairs. They don't force our leaders to accept their product. They don't force us into partnering with them. They come in, we give them our consent, and we set the rules of the games. If we don't want it, we set the price of our product, and they go on. Contrary to our partner, the Western partner, they came in, they impose their ideologies on us, and when we refuse, they send it proxy wars, they set up armies, they come and they destabilize our government. And even till date, 14 francophone African countries are paying colonial debt to France. They are paying them 500 billion amount of money yearly. And funny enough, if we ask France to set their central bank of France in Africa so that we control the production of their money, they will refuse. But they are currently controlling 14 African countries. They are controlling their central banks. They are controlling the production of their money somewhere here in Clermont-Ferrand. They are controlling the production of their money. And how can a sovereign country have her bank somewhere established in a foreign country? You see, so our partnership with the Westerners have been that of a parasitic relationship, a paternity kind of relationship. You know, they see us as little and they have to control us, and they don't even want us. And when we struggle to free ourselves from their clouds, they don't want to leave us. They try everything they can to make sure they suppress us to remain under them. So what do we stand to gain with China? What do we stand to lose with China? First of all, we need to see that China has invested a lot in Africa. The investment started growing from 2005. 2005, they had 60 billion invested in Africa. And when you come to 2009, you will see that they had 90 billion invested in Africa. When you come to 2013, you will see that they had 133 billion invested in Africa. When you come to 2015 again, you see that the investment keep growing to 145 billion to 150 billion. And when you come to 2016, you see that the investment keep growing, and to 160 billion. So we don't know what it will be in the future. So we stand not very much to lose from partnering with China. So all we need to do is to understand that the only thing we're going to lose is that there's no transfer of technology. There's no transfer of skills. So we set the rules, we set the terms. It's us. We have to blame ourselves for this loss that we get, for this thing that's happening to us. And China is in no way, has no ambition to recolonize Africa. That's what we need to know. And the only foolish people, we are the one. Now, we have identified this problem. We have understand that the Europeans, we maintain this parasitic relationship with Europe for 600 years now, from slavery to colonialism to neocolonialism. And now we see that China has no interest in recolonizing Africa or imposing their ideology, but rather what they want is an economic interest. They want to feed their growing population. So we need to understand how to trade carefully with them and what we will gain and what we will lose. So if I have the choice to choose between Europe and China, I would choose China, and then make sure that I prepare my decision and prepare myself in such a way that I will not lose much when I trade with China, that I will gain, they gain, and we gain, they gain. The Westerners are not interested in giving up their power today, if you don't know, because as of in the history, they are the ones they are the one controlling the production all over the world, because they produce the cars, they produce all the gadgets, they produce everything, and they sell it to other countries. But right now, their power is being threatened because other countries are emerging. They are now becoming independent. They are no more consumers, but rather they are becoming producers. First of all, you see China as an example of a country that set up a huge threat to the Western civilization, and it's always like that. That's always been like that. The civilization always die, and then the new one rise up again. It will never be you. It will never be the West forever. We have seen the Mesopotamian civilization. We have seen the Maya civilization. We have seen Egypt. All this civilization died. The Roman civilization, the Greco-Roman civilization, they all died because that's how time is. That's how modern nature is. That's how the world is. With time, everything dies. Everything, anything you just set up will die. But the West are not willing to give up their power right now, and their power is already threatened. So you go on from resource-based economy to knowledge-based economy, and yet they're not even having the power yet. So we need to understand that for us to be able to liberate ourselves from their class, we need to become independent. We need to become consumers and not we need to become producers and not perpetual consumers. So the day that Africa will start becoming a producer, or the Africa will become a producer, that is when the whole world will be in deep shit, because all the resources are coming from Africa. Your gadget, your smartphones, your system, and everything. There's this mineral. This mineral, they call it coltan. Just one example is in Congo. So 80% of this mineral comes from Congo. But the irony of all this thing is that Congo is classified as the fourth most poorest country in the world. So tell me, isn't something faulty with the system? So we need to find this fault and correct them. And let me tell you something. Every people, if you read through the history, through civilization, revolution, and everything, it all started this way. The French Revolution, the Chinese Revolution, the US Civil War, and everywhere. When you look at it, it all started this way. The people will be starving. They will get so frustrated with their system, with the government, and then they will call for a change. When one individual stand up and say, hey, we don't want to remain in this situation perpetually. Let's change this government. Well, let's fight it. Let's bring the government down. You see that they will go for it. And then there will be changes. So now when you look back into the China's history, you see that during this period, they call it a Great Leap, because it was a period whereby the people got frustrated and the revolution worked for them. And right now they have a stable economy and they're enjoying. So Africa need to follow, we need to copy this system. We need to understand that we need to move forward. First of all, we need a cultural revolution that will change our mindset. We change the way we see the world. We change the way we see progress in our community. Because when you look at it, there are a lot of factors that are affecting Africa. An average African that is a Christian confuse Christian faith with Eurocentrism. So when he says that he's a Christian, he tries to behave like the Westerners, he tries to behave like the Europeans, he tries to, that's a fault. And an average African, a black African that is a Muslim, confused Islam faith with Arabism. Arabism is Arab culture where they dominate women, they do all sorts of things. We had our culture, so we need to value them. If you want to be a Muslim, practice the faith, in order to edify your spirit, in order to keep your mind afresh, in order to make you, connect you with the divine creator. But if you want to be a Christian, you need to practice love, you need to practice forgiveness, you practice all those things, and not start to behave. And then you don't go on destroying your cultural heritage because you are a Christian, or you don't go on destroy your cultural heritage because you are a Muslim. So we need to identify these things and know the difference on how to carry on with these things. So get yourself ready and let's understand these things, that China is in no way coming to recolonize Africa, but they are solely interested in their economic growth. So and we need to understand too that this partnership is faulty and we have to correct it if we really, really want to progress.